Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I'm Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Friday. Thank you so much for joining me. We have a lot to get to today. We're going to talk quite a bit about the Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones and Micah Parsons, but also the Dallas Cowboys and a Netflix documentary on the Dallas Cowboys. It's 8 parts. It's amazing. Some people are comparing it to the Last Dance documentary, and I don't think they're wrong. We also are going to talk about Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders back in the news cycle. Shedeur Sanders in the news cycle because of what Eric Dickerson had to say about Shedeur Sanders, but also Shedeur Sanders demonstrating the behavior that I think made a lot of teams skeptical of taking Shedeur Sanders earlier in the draft. We'll discuss that. Angel Reese in the Chicago Sky got an important victory last night. An amazing victory last night against the New York Liberty. We'll discuss that. We'll have TJ Moe. We'll have Steve Kim. We'll have Anthony Walker on today's show. We'll have an amazing Friday show, and then we'll top it with an amazing harmony. Chad Jackson will be in studio with me. You guys probably remember Chad. I did a series of interviews, or a long interview, and we chopped it up into a series of interviews with Chad Jackson about Martin Luther King and his legacy. Today, Chad's here in Nashville. He'll be here in studio with me, and we'll talk about MLK and Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes had some things to say about me yesterday, I believe, on his show. I'll have a response, and we'll have a comparison. It's like, is Nick Fuentes just another version of MLK? And for some of you, you'll hear that, oh, MLK was great. What are you talking about? Some of you will hear it the way that I'm intending it. MLK was controlled opposition and a plant by a Marxist movement. And you've heard me and Chad Jackson go into quite a bit of detail about that. Anyway, so stay tuned for all of that on the Harmony channel. I want to thank our great friends at Preborn for today's episode of Fearless. Thank you so much, Preborn. Thank you for all the work that you do in saving babies' lives and letting us participate in that journey to rescue 40,000 babies this year. And we're just honored, privileged, pleased to be a part of saving babies' lives by supporting Preborn. Preborn provides expectant mothers who are considering abortion, provides them an ultrasound, introduces that baby's heartbeat and that baby's image to the mother while the baby's in the womb. Once the mother has that discovery, she is now twice as likely to choose life. And that's where Preborn steps in, steps up, and supports that woman and child for up to 2 years. Preborn is amazing, and as part of our mission here at Fearless, we connect all the dots. Life begins at conception, and so as men, we must support life at conception. And we do that by donating to Preborn. It's $28 for an ultrasound. So whether you give $28 and pay for one ultrasound, $140 pay for 5, $280 pays for 10, whatever you can afford to give. I give on a monthly basis. Occasionally I get fired up. I want to feel better about myself. I want to try to put a smile on God's face, and I'll give a little extra. I'll do a little more. You got to give until it hurts a little bit, you know? So there's 2 ways for you to give. Pound 250, say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, say the keyword baby, or visit Preborn at preborn.com/fearless. Preborn.com/fearless. Make sure you let folks at Preborn know who told you. Make sure you let me know that you did it by emailing me at fearlessblazeshow@gmail.com. Thank you so much. All right, let's get into today's show and topic. Have you paid any attention? Have you heard about the Netflix documentary, what is it, America's Team, the Gambler and America's Team, or something like that? Jerry Jones is portrayed as this great gambler that took all these risks to acquire the Dallas Cowboys. They tell you the story about him and Jimmy Johnson building the Cowboys into this dynasty in the 90s. Then at the end, they kind of show you, it's gone pretty poorly the last 30 years since Jerry and Jimmy Johnson split. And there's some takeaways that I think apply to what's going on with the Dallas Cowboys right now as it relates to Micah Parsons and this contract dispute between Micah Parsons and the Dallas Cowboys. Micah Parsons has stripped all of the Cowboys stuff off his social media. Micah Parsons is letting off signs. I'm out of here. I'm done. He's under contract. Jerry can franchise tag him, I think, for the next 2 or 3 years. But Micah Parsons and his agent, David Mulugheta, are so frustrated and fed up with Jerry Jones that they're like, deuces, we're out of here. And Micah Parsons is letting off every indication, I'm not playing with the Cowboys ever again. Micah Parsons needs to watch this Netflix documentary on the Cowboys. It is perfectly timed because there's something that applies here clearly to Micah Parsons, something that applies here to the Dallas Cowboys and what has gone on the last 30 years, what has gone on since Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson split after winning that second Super Bowl, 92, 93, back-to-back Super Bowls. They split. They had this feud over credit and over being disrespected or respected or whatever it is. Jerry Jones, here's the issue with the Cowboys. Jerry Jones values relationships more than championships. Relationships versus championships is what this entire documentary is about. It's what Jerry Jones is about. At the beginning of this documentary, or early on in this documentary, they show you quite a bit of Jerry Jones's history as a young boy in Arkansas, as a young boy that had this dream of being on the Arkansas football team in the 1960s. And he completes this mission, and they make it kind of clear if you're watching closely, if you can read between the lines, like Jerry Jones was an okay football player that had this big, amazing dream of playing at Arkansas. And he worked and he sacrificed everything to have that dream come true. He makes it to the Arkansas football team, plays a little bit, and at some point in the early 1960s, or maybe it's 1960, they have this amazing season and Jerry Jones is a captain on this Arkansas football team, and one of his teammates is Jimmy Johnson, who is this incredible leader and dynamic, charismatic teammate of Jerry Jones's at Arkansas, and they run the table and go undefeated and win their final game of the season, I believe, at the Cotton Bowl in Texas. I think they beat Nebraska, if my memory's serving me properly. And Jerry Jones has this amazing experience. He's comes from a working class family. He's not overly talented, but he has this unbelievable young life experience where he's a part of this football team and finishes the season undefeated, a national champion and all that. And Jimmy Johnson's the most dynamic leader on this team. And this opens Jerry's eyes to like, hey man, if I have a dream, I can accomplish it. I can accomplish anything. And this thing that we did together, and Jerry Jones this thing that we did together at Arkansas, he's been chasing that high ever since. And buying the Dallas Cowboys was a part of chasing that high in professional football. If we could do this together, this feeling of we, and these relationships that are built they're go on for a lifetime. And so when he buys the Cowboys, he is committed to hiring the man he considers his best friend, and he considers this dynamic, charismatic leader that led the Arkansas football team and was Jerry's teammate and roommate. They were roommates. They got signed roommates by last names, Jones and Johnson. And so Jerry's like, me and my best friend since Arkansas, and we did this incredible thing. We're going to do it all over again with the Dallas Cowboys, the greatest football franchise in all the world. I'm going to buy the team, and I'm going to hire my best friend and coach to run the team. And lo and behold, they have amazing success. And Jerry's just thinking, oh, this relationship is unbelievable. And what we did. And Jimmy Johnson has a quirk in his personality. He values championships more than relationships. And in order to pursue championships with the Dallas Cowboys, this documentary makes it clear out of Jimmy Johnson's own mouth that he told his wife, peace out. I'm going to win Super Bowls and championships with the Dallas Cowboys. He told his kids, love you to death, but I'm going to be focused on winning Super Bowls and leading this Cowboys football team. I want championships. Jerry Jones wanted relationships. And Jerry Jones wanted the championships too, because that enhances the relationship, but he values relationships far more than the championships. And you could see this play out in Jerry Jones's allegiance to Michael Irvin. This documentary is incredible. I want to help you draw the right conclusions, pick up the right points from this, because I highly doubt if anybody else in the media is going to unpack this documentary properly or unpack Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson's relationship properly. Jerry Jones is just doing too much. He's an idiot. It's his ego. He just wants to be the general manager, and he needs to get out of his own way, and he's the worst thing on the planet. It's not the conclusion to draw from this. Jerry Jones is a relationship guy. He treats the Cowboys like a family business. His kids, his son, Steven, his daughter, I think her name's Charlotte. Then there's another son in there that plays a lesser role. But this is a family business, and then Jerry Jones gets in bed with the players and treats them like family too. And Jerry Jones just believes in we. He's not perfect, but he just wants we. And Jimmy Johnson's like, hey man, I get it, you're the owner, but I'm the football guy. I did the Herschel Walker trade. I built this. Jerry, you cut the checks, but I'm the football guy. Stay out of my way. You didn't do the drafting. I did the drafting. It was me and my guy. He wouldn't play along with Jerry's we thing. And then the whole thing falls apart. And I didn't know this detail. I remember vaguely the stories, but I just don't remember the details. They're at an owners meeting after winning the '93 Super Bowl. They're down in, I believe, Orlando, Florida, owners meeting. Owners, coaches, high-end executives are all there. They gather in the NFL. Jerry Jones is walking through the hotel lobby, spots Jimmy Johnson, Norv Turner, his offensive coordinator, Dave Wanstead, his defensive coordinator, all sitting at a table. And Jerry Jones comes walking through the hotel, and he raises a glass in toast. Hey, guys, what we did, it's amazing. And Dave Wanstead and Norv Turner raised glasses and toasted with Jerry, and Jimmy Johnson sat there with his arms crossed because he's got a problem with Jerry Jones, and he doesn't participate in the toast. And Jerry Jones, being a billionaire owner and having had enough of Jimmy not wanting to do the we thing, decided that night, I'm going to fire Jimmy Johnson. And that was the beginning of the end of the Cowboys dynasty. And I bring this up, this whole family relationship deal, because when I look at the Dallas Cowboys and what's missing and what gets pointed out in this documentary, when Jimmy Johnson left, Troy Aikman, the quarterback of the team, felt like, hey, someone's got to be the bad guy. Someone's got to be the adult in the room and tell these other players and hold them accountable and tell them when they've stepped out of line and hold the line in terms of discipline and accountability. And Troy took that on because Jerry had no interest in it. Jerry wants to be loved. He wants Michael Irvin. He wants Emmitt Smith. He wants Deion Sanders. He wants Charles Haley. He wants Emmitt Smith. Did I already say Emmitt Smith? Troy? He wants everybody to love him. There's no bad guy in the Cowboys organization as it relates to dealing with the players and dealing with the organization. Jerry Jones, when he wants to be the bad guy, it's with the NFL. It's with his peers in ownership and at the commissioner level. He'll play the bad guy there. They're not part of his Cowboys family. He'll go rogue, do whatever he wants to do. He'll be the bad guy to push the Cowboys forward and push the league forward. They spell it out in clear terms. It's like Jerry Jones is the guy that got in bed with Rupert Murdoch and Fox Sports and was like, hey, man, we're not going to just do a deal with CBS for less money. Rupert's offering us more. And he had this whole view on TV and like, we're going to be a loss leader. They need to quit worrying about how much money they make. They need to worry about what we do for their other television shows. And he went to war with the NFL, and he was proven right, and they got $1.6 billion out of Fox, and it totally changed the TV market for the NFL. He went to war with the NFL over wanting to cut his own deal with Nike, wanting to cut his own deal with Pepsi or Coca-Cola or whoever it was. He'd be the bad guy with the NFL. But with the Cowboys, he wants everybody to love him. And so when he looks at Micah Parsons and he looks at this contract dispute and he wants to cut out the agent, David Mulugheta, Jerry Jones wants a relationship with Micah Parsons that will last a lifetime. He wants to remove the agent from the equation. He's trying, and if you watch this documentary, what he's trying to subtly say to Micah Parsons is like, look at the way I love Michael Irvin. Michael Irvin went to hell, and he had on gasoline underwear when he went there. And Michael Irvin asked me, Jerry, I'm in hell. They got me busted on these drug charges. They got this woman that I was banging, squealing on me, telling everything about I threatened to kill her, the drugs we use. Jerry, I need you to put on these gasoline underwear and go to hell with me and resurrect me and bring me back from hell. And Jerry Jones did that. And then Michael Irvin turned back around and said, Jerry, I'm going to hell again. And I got a gasoline wife beater and underwear on. And I need you to put on this wife beater and gasoline underwear and come to hell with me again and save me, because I have stabbed and nearly killed a teammate of mine on the Cowboys facility over a haircut. I had forgotten or was oblivious. I'm watching the documentary and I was like, I don't remember this, but this is a true story, and Mike is copping to it. And they got the prosecutor and they're going into detail like, holy cow, Michael Irvin took some scissors and stabbed a teammate, and the guy had to be rushed to the hospital. And then clearly it's inferred, it's not spelled out, but it's inferred that like Jerry Jones and the Cowboys worked with the guy that got stabbed so that he would not snitch on Michael Irvin. And they handled it mafioso style. We're not telling the police, we'll reach a settlement with this guy, and Mike, you get to stay on the team. Jerry Jones is trying to tell Micah Parsons, bro, ask Michael Irvin, ask any of these players of mine. I will go to hell and back with you. I'm that type of relationship guy. And you can watch this, and many people will watch it, and your respect for Jerry Jones and his loyalty will go up. It did for me. It's not that I agree with what they did. It's just like, holy cow, Jerry Jones is a loyal guy. When he loves his players, he loves his players. But the other part of me was like, and Jerry, this is why you can't win. Because you shouldn't have gone to hell with Michael Irvin with gasoline underwear on. You can't recover from that. You've cut a deal with the devil. And I want to be crystal clear. I love Michael Irvin. I really do. I used to really dislike Michael Irvin. And then I met him, sat down with him, got to know him. This man has an enormous heart, major intellect. But he is a flawed human being that makes some really bad mistakes and decisions and will set a culture up in your work environment, in your locker room, that will undermine winning. And you will convince yourself, hey, we won these first 2 Super Bowls, and everybody on this deal. Well, Michael was our energy. Michael was our leader. Michael was the guy that gave us that oomph. Michael's also the guy that took the organization straight to hell, and it has never recovered from that. They needed a bad guy. And so I'm watching this documentary, and I'm saying to myself that if Jimmy Johnson was still there and allowed to be the bad guy, they would have cut bait with Michael Irvin around 1994 and 95. They certainly would have cut bait with Michael Irvin by 1996, by the time he's involved in this drug case at a hotel with hookers and drugs. They needed a bag. They needed their version of Bill Belichick to say, hey, man, you've been a great player for us, but you become more of a headache than we can tolerate, and we have to move on. A championship coach would have figured out, like, we've milked this cow. The rest of the milk in the Michael Irvin cow is spoiled and is going to destroy this franchise and team. And it happened, and it did that. And they held on to Michael Irvin. In my view, after the first 2 Super Bowls, and again, it's not because he had already gotten into criminal trouble, because he didn't get into criminal trouble, I don't believe, until 1996. But you should have been able to sniff out, like, oh boy, we've gone as far as we're going to go with Michael Irvin as our leader. Someone has to be the bad guy. And Bill Belichick used to do that with the Patriots over and over. Oh, you've been a valuable player for us, but we're going to move on and do better. You're near your expiration date. He eventually even did it to Tom Brady. There's no bad guy in Dallas. Now, Jerry Jones' bad guy as it relates to the NFL and what he'll do to Roger Goodell and his ownership friends. But with his Cowboys, he's ride or die. He's going to love them. He's going to go to hell and back with them. I left this documentary liking and respecting Jerry Jones. I left it liking and respecting Jimmy Johnson. But I like and respect Jerry Jones a little bit more. I think Micah Parsons needs to watch this documentary and find out who he's really saying no to. And maybe Micah Parsons is like, hey, man, Jerry's only got 2-3 years left. It's Stephen Jones and Charlotte and blah, blah, blah. But these kids are going to be influenced by their dad and their dad's philosophy. David Mulugheta sounds great. He's an agent. When you go bad, when you reach your expiration point, Micah Parsons, he's going to cut bait with you and move on to the next player who can make him more money. Jerry Jones has proven he will not turn his back. And we're leaving it at Michael Irvin. But there's a bunch of other Cowboys because they hired a bunch of idiots and bent over backwards for Charles Haley, bent over backwards for Nate Newton. Oh, man, I want Jerry Jones in my foxhole. I want Jerry Jones to be my team owner. David Mulugheta, an agent, great. He ain't Jerry Jones. He ain't ride or die like that. Whoo, boy. Anyway, so I suggest to all of you, you watch the documentary, apply it to what we're seeing here with Micah Parsons. There's some other issues related to the documentary. I'm going to bring Steve Kim, TJ Moe, and Anthony Walker into that conversation. Stick with us. Let me take care of our great friends at Relief Factor, big part of today's show. So many people living with everyday pain think they're just stuck with it. It is what it is, but it doesn't have to be that way. Let me tell you about Stanley and his Relief Factor story. Stanley had seen TV ads for Relief Factor more times than he could count, but for some reason was skeptical about trying it. Finally, his leg and back pain won out, so he gave in and ordered. After just 1 week of taking Relief Factor, his pain eased up dramatically. He even started sleeping better. Now Stanley says, this stuff is incredible. Why didn't I switch to it earlier? And of course, he wishes he had. If you're living with aches and pains, see how Relief Factor, a daily drug-free supplement, could help you feel and live better every day. Give their 3-week quick start a try. It's just $19.95 in a few weeks or even a few days. Feel the difference Relief Factor can make. Don't feel stuck living with pain. Visit relieffactor.com or call 1-800-4RELIEF. That's 1-800-4-RELIEF. Steve Kim, Anthony Walker, TJ Moe. Act. Adam Schefter just hinted at reporting in his understanding that the Cleveland Browns are going to keep 4 quarterbacks this year. So on one half of the state, you got the Cincinnati Bengals won't pay superstar defensive end on a team that plays bad defense. Looks like they're listening to trade offers for Trey Hendrickson. It looks like that's going to end in calamity. And here are the incompetently run Cleveland Browns. They're potentially going to start this NFL season with 4 quarterbacks on the roster because the franchise decided to take 2 rookie quarterbacks, and they decided to take the 1 rookie quarterback that comes with a DEI circus attached to him, Shedeur Sanders. All right, welcome back. TJ Moe, Anthony Walker, Steve Kim joining me. I know that Anthony and Steve Kim have watched the entire documentary. I've tried to get TJ up to speed on what I enjoyed yesterday and the day before. So I want to start with TJ, and then we'll probably let TJ go, and then Anthony and Steve and I will take it from there. TJ, my big takeaway from all this is how much Jerry Jones values relationships built through sports, and he's trying to recapture that moment at every turn. And Jimmy Johnson loves championships, and that is the difference. That's the split. That's the disconnect between Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson. One values relationships more than championships. The other clearly values championships more than relationships. Who do you think's got it right here?
Well, look, I think anytime you are not valuing people first, then you got a problem, right? That's the greatest commandments, right? Love God, love people. That's it. And so it's pretty clear on that. However, I don't know that that's exactly what Jerry Jones is chasing. The way you described it is that he's chasing the camaraderie that he felt when he won the championship. So ultimately, they're both chasing the same thing for different reasons, but they need the championship to feel it. If you look at Jerry, he's kind of miserable without winning these championships. He's always kind of upset about something. Like, he might be having a good time in the background, but the reality is, go ask him how much more fun he was having in 1992. It was a different world for him. And that he's chasing the camaraderie that he felt at Arkansas. And look, I mean, you and I had the camaraderie in our locker rooms in college, and there's nothing like it where you are off on your own for the first time, and you get to sit and actually live life with a bunch of single-minded guys who aren't married, don't have kids. You live with, 3 or 4 of the guys, and they're your best friends, and you come in and care about the same thing every single day, and there's a camaraderie that you can't match. Now go win a national championship, and it puts that on steroids. And you'll think of that as the greatest moment of your life forever. And that's what he's chasing in Dallas. He actually needed Jimmy Johnson. He needed a guy so obsessed with getting that championship so he could feel the relational satisfaction that he's actually chasing. So, as we had the discussion this morning on the meeting, do you have more admiration or respect, or who has it right? Jerry needed Jimmy, and I think Jimmy needed Jerry to some degree. If I'm a player, I want owners just like Jerry, and I really want coaches like Jimmy. And you couldn't switch them, I don't think. You can't have the hardcore owner and the players coach and make it work as well. So, to be honest, I think they had a little bit of that dynamic in New England. I think you had sort of you saw it with Kraft, who really didn't want to get rid of Brady, who was his boy. And Belichick was a cutthroat guy, and it worked for a really long time.
And look, I want to be careful here because I want to be respectful, and I don't want to sound silly. But, my high school experience as an athlete was amazing. My high school experience just as a student was amazing. And we, along Jeff George, our quarterback, and, a lot of other very good players, we went undefeated and won a state championship, and I can remember that. But my connections with the guys that I played football with at Ball State, and we played for the MAC championship against Western Michigan and lost. And we didn't get the ultimate goal. But my connection with the guys in college is so much, it's a level deeper than my connection with my teammates from high school football, even though we accomplished the great thing and won the state championship and were nationally ranked. We did something. We were the first team in our school's history to win the football state championship. The connection, it's just something about that coming of age from 18 to 22. And I don't know if you need the championship to have that connection last a lifetime, the relationships to feel that way. I don't, it probably would have been nice to win the MAC championship. I'm certainly it'd be nice to win a national championship. I don't know if it would make the relationships that much better or any better.
Well, it creates a euphoria. And look, I'm a guy who never won a championship, so I'm just speaking honestly from what the guys who have won championships do. That I didn't win one in high school, didn't win one in college, obviously, and never really played in the NFL. And so, but there is a euphoria. I think you mentioned, was it Bill Romanowski was talking about it in documentary. There's something about when you win that championship and you accomplish something at the highest level, and you have a connection. It's not that like suddenly you're deeper friends, but it's your memories and the nostalgia that you're chasing. That's what Jerry's doing. It's a nostalgia. We all have it, right? It's like I romanticize. I've come to this conclusion this week because a lot of my friendships that I loved, one of them was my best friend in college, that have fallen apart for different reasons. It's just nostalgia. Like our values change, you move into different seasons of life, and you don't have those same friends, and that was a good season, and you want to remember that in that season. But Jerry Jones is what, 85 years old? Chasing that nostalgia that he felt in college, that he probably thinks he can duplicate in Dallas by just winning championships. And for a time when it actually was his best friend, Jimmy Johnson, he probably felt that. Would it feel the same with a different coach? Would it feel the same with different players in the pros? I think he's chasing something that he experienced when he was 22 years old that felt like the greatest moment of his life. And, he's probably not going to get it again. It goes back to the relationships. This is why, what TV show or movie was it where he had that acting job that was spectacular, that went viral last year sometime, and he was talking all about relationships. I wish we had that to play on here. I didn't think of it until just now. But he was in some sort of TV show with, I think, Billy Bob Thornton maybe, and he's expressing a lot of what you're talking about, and that he bought the Dallas Cowboys because of his family. And you don't want to be sitting there on your deathbed surrounded by coworkers and people. You want to be people who are that are actually in this thing in the foxhole with you, and that's your kids. And he bought the Dallas Cowboys so that he could have a family business. And so he doesn't care, with nepotism and all that. Great. He's the biggest fan in the world because that's why he bought the Cowboys. So that's actually, you're dead on about the relationship thing. And he's chasing some sort of nostalgia to create those relationships with, that he felt like he had in college. So I don't even know if I'm answering your question, but I do think it's comparing high school to college, I think is a mistake to some degree because you still live with your parents. You don't have the same feeling. But he had that feeling in college, and he's trying to match it all the way until his deathbed.
TJ, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to talk to Steve and Anthony, who watched the entire documentary. I appreciate it. Steve, I'm going to start with you. What do you think of my takeaway that this is a documentary about one guy that values relationships a bit more than championships and another guy that values only championships? Is that the right takeaway, or did you come away with something different?
Well, first of all, I thought it was an incredible tribute to Jimmy Johnson and his leadership and his vision and his acumen. And I think, Jason, you're being a little bit naive. Do you know why Jerry likes those guys from the 90s a lot? Because they won. He doesn't have the same feelings for the guys that came after. The relationships are because of the winning. There's a word called transactional. He's the most transactional human being there is. He's a businessman, man. And that is the reality. They put the 3 Lombardis in that trophy case that he loves to look at every single day. The architect is Jimmy Johnson, and what he's really chasing is a trophy of his own. I know the third one was with Barry, but the architect was still James William Johnson. So the reality is this. The reason why he kept sticking up for Michael and doing things he probably shouldn't have to any other law-abiding citizen, the playmaker mattered. He helped them. He was a force multiplier for many years. So don't be naive about this. This is professional sports, which is in essence business, as Jerry would say.
Listen, I'm not sure if you're accurate.
No.
Look, talking about look, hold on. Steve, I can't disagree with you. You just disagreed with me. Listen, talking about the 90s when you won Superstore, talking about winning Super Bowls is fun, and it'll get you documentaries. But I'm not sure Jerry, I guarantee you, feels like, man, I could do a documentary about how I feel about Tony Romo, how I feel about a bunch of other players, and I think they'd have testimonials. We'd be less likely to watch them or listen to them because Tony Romo didn't win a Super Bowl, and he's not a part of memories that are etched in our mind. But when I look at Jerry and the way he's treated Dak Prescott, when I look at Jerry and the way he's treating Micah Parsons, and again, Dak Prescott's the highest paid quarterback in the league, and he's probably about the 12th best quarterback in the league. Jerry, I do think he values relationships, and yes, do the ones attached to titles get you more attention and help build the brand and the business? Yes, but Jerry is in constant pursuit, in my view, of being loved by people that are connected to helping him try to pursue Super Bowl titles.
Jason, I actually agree with much of what you say, and I'm going to say something. I thought The Last Dance was perfection. But why did we love The Last Dance? It wasn't just Michael Jordan. Part of it was because Michael Jordan won a lot. You can't do a documentary on teams that always finish in third place and lose in the wild card round. You can't. There's no resonance to it. Right? Out of all the 30 for 30s, the one that gets brought up the most when it comes to college sports is the U. Why? Because they won, and they had style, they had panache, they were renegades. The Cowboys, I see a lot of similarities with that, right? So you're saying that Jimmy doesn't cherish relationships. I completely disagree with that, knowing players that played for him. And they will tell you he had an impact on their lives day-to-day.
I may have misstated that. I may have misstated or created the wrong impression. He doesn't care about relationships as much as Jerry Jones.
That, you know what? That is absolutely
keep in mind,
fair.
in that documentary, I just want to refresh your memory.
Yeah.
The man told my wife and kids, hey, I'm out. I'm doing this championship thing. They spelled that out in the deal. That's a guy that prioritizes championships over relationships.
But Jason, haven't you honestly told people I sacrificed things in my life that I now regret for my professional success? We've all done it. It's a choice. I am not endorsing that, yeah, you should get divorced your wife to win a Super Bowl, but can we be honest about this? There's legions of Cowboy fans that thank them for it. It was some of their best times of their lives.
Different discussion. We're only talking about the audience of one. That's Jerry Jones in this case, not about the fans. Anthony, your take on my take about the dichotomy between relationships and championships, Jerry Jones, Jimmy Johnson.
Steve Kim is my guy. He sounds like somebody who is a Miami Hurricane. I think your take is just a little bit short of where mine is. I look at it this way, Jason. Jerry Jones believes that relationships lead to championships. Jimmy Johnson believes that winning championships enhances those relationships. And I think that's what we saw played out in it. He looks at the business of the NFL. He treats it like a business. He doesn't mind making the tough decisions to fire Landry, to bring in whoever. But the people that he brought in are just like you said. It was all about family. It was all about relationships. But he's looking at that as we're going to be a little bit different from the other organizations. We're going to be a family. And I think this family dynamic, as in his dynamic, is what contributed to the winning. Jimmy Johnson looks at it and says, hey, I love my family and stuff, but this thing that I'm about to do is about winning. And when you win, you feel good. And so when they won, everything felt good. I think TJ brought it up as well. Jerry and Jimmy needed each other. Jerry allowed Jimmy to do a lot of what he does in the best that he does. You saw that from the U. Jimmy is a motivator. He knows how to really get in these players. He knows how to bring out the best. He knows how to manage these large personalities. And Jerry is the gambler. So if you need me to get somebody, I'll go get them. We'll do whatever. And I'll love them. The problem, though, that we saw throughout the whole movie was who gets the credit for this. And instead of both men, and they admit it in the movie or in the documentary, instead of both men stepping back to say, hey, man, we did a great thing. It was, hey, I did, and that's what unravels all of it. But again, simply stated, Jerry believes that relationships lead to winning and all of that. And Jimmy says, hey, winning makes those relationships, whatever they are. You win a championship together, you're going to feel good about the people that you won with.
Anthony,
did you? Oh, go ahead, Steve.
To your point, Jimmy Johnson's degree from the University of Arkansas was industrial psychology.
Yes, sir.
He was actually going to go into the corporate world to learn how to motivate people. Now, I know this story firsthand. There's a gentleman by the name of Claude Jones. He has 3 national title rings. In his 5 years at the University of Miami, he lost 4 games. He's a very good friend of mine. Going to see him next week. He told me a funny story. He said that in his redshirt freshman year, that was Jimmy's last season at Miami, he's in the training room. He banged up his knee, so he's getting treatment. So all these veteran players are getting treatment, and Jimmy's coming around checking on each of these guys that is contributing. And he's like, what's going on over here? And he said, I hadn't spoken to Jimmy in about a month. I'm a scout team player. So Jimmy comes around to his training table, and his knees laid out. He's getting treatment. And Claude says, hey, coach, how you doing? And Jimmy just looks at him, and he goes, Claude, I don't talk to any of your players now. I need to get out there now. And he just walked away. Now, that may seem cold-blooded, but let me tell you something. When Claude told me that story about 3 years ago, he was laughing. He actually enjoyed because it taught him something about life, about contributions and responsibilities. And then when Jimmy wrote his book, Swagger, he actually said, Jimmy, I'm proud of the All-Pros and the first-round draft choices that I helped develop and produce and recruit. But I'm just as proud at the University of Miami, I produced a guy like Claude Jones, who's now a doctor that runs his own hospital. And Claude has not talked to him in 30 years. I said, Claude, you know you're in Jimmy's book? It made Claude's day. Jimmy Johnson raised the graduation rate at Miami by about 5 times to about 75, 80%. That is actually documented. So when people say that Jimmy's just this cold-hearted guy, he was as a football coach. He did change lives. I will die on that hill.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
There is a scene in the documentary where some player's falling out with asthma, and he's telling, get off the field. I don't care. And yeah,
Right.
I'm telling you, I like Jimmy Johnson. I came away from the documentary liking Jerry Jones a bit more than I like Jimmy Johnson, and I came away respecting Jerry Jones a bit more than I respected Jimmy Johnson. That's not a slight at Jimmy Johnson. It may be an indication that Jerry had more influence over the documentary and the way it was unpacked, but the information that I was presented, I understood Jerry's perspective, point of view, philosophy. I could see it in everything. Man, I got my kids working with me. I got my best friend from college working with me, and we're gonna love on these players. And when things went wrong with Jimmy Johnson, I'm gonna bring in Barry Switzer, and he's gonna love on these players. And we are going to suffer and succeed as a family. Now, there's part of me that again would have been like, you needed Jimmy Johnson to say, you know what, Michael Irvin's going to take us straight to hell. We got to move on from this. But I did. Let's just deal with that. The first one, I came away from here this liking both, respecting both, but Jerry slightly above in each category for me. Anthony, go ahead.
I understand Jerry a little bit more, and I think he did a interview with Joe Buck a couple of years ago, and that's when I began to really understand, like, Jerry is a real storyteller. We know he's a salesman, but he's a real storyteller. But no, my love for Jimmy just skyrocketed because we got to really see a lot of that inside scope of his. But I understand Jerry more. I don't know if my love went any higher for him, but I just understand him more.
Steve?
Anthony, I'll say this. I came away with more respect for Jerry Jones, and I'm not anti-Jerry Jones, and I'm a Jimmy Johnson loyalist. I actually came away hoping that this guy wins one more Super Bowl title. I really do, before he goes off into the night, because, hey, if Jimmy's okay with him, I'm okay with him. But Anthony, to your point, I know a lot of players that played from 89 to about 92 at the U. So they intersected between Jimmy and Dennis, and they will tell you to a man. Now they're old men, right? And I've seen them at tailgates. They say, Steve, we love playing for Dennis. Oh, it was fun. Oh, he was a player's coach. We can get away with a lot more. But I said, all right, so out of those two, if you could do your whole career over again, who do you prefer? They all say Jimmy. They go, why? Because we've grown up. Because we want our sons to play for Jimmy Johnson. One of the greatest stories I was ever told is a guy by the name of Dale Dawkins said when he came to the NFL, he was a 7th round draft choice. And the coach said, hey, how you doing, kid? And he goes, you know, coach, I'm going to be honest with you. I look around all these rookies like Terrence Mathis, Reggie Rembrandt you guys brought in. These guys aren't ready for the NFL life in this training camp. I am. And the guy said, why? He goes, you don't understand what Jimmy Johnson put us through with Gary Stevens, our coordinator. Everything you're doing here, I'm actually ready. This is kind of easy for me. He prepared more men for life than anyone will ever give him credit for, because guys wore fatigues and they danced. Now, the thing with Jerry Jones that I do respect is I saw an interview with him and Michael Irvin last night. They were talking about the documentary. The fact that a lot of these players to this day, it's not just a 5-year contract you're signing with the Cowboys. It turns out if you play it the right way, and to your point, Jason, with Micah Parsons, you're creating a 50-year relationship with that man. I have a lot of respect for the way Jerry does that.
That was and look, Jerry doesn't have near as much time left as he did in the 90s when he was building those relationships with Michael Irvin and that group. So Micah Parsons probably thinks a little bit less like that. But I did want to address Michael Irvin. I don't remember the scissor stabbing story.
Oh,
I don't remember it. The documentary, like, holy cow, this happened, and they covered it up, and they clear. It's not stated, but it's clear that this man got paid off to not say anything, and it's like, and I love Michael Irvin. Met him, know him. Guy's got a beautiful spirit and heart. But watching the documentary, I came away with, hey man, they should have cut bait. They should have moved on. They should have traded Michael Irvin after the 94, 95 season, some point, certainly after 96. Yeah, in my view, they should have got rid of the playmaker. And I love the guy, but he took them straight to, and they said it. Like, after the drug deal, the locker room and the culture was never the same. And that doesn't just spring up out of nowhere. Someone should have been aware, like, hey, this is the direction we're headed with Michael Irvin as the leader of this team. And we've gotten 2 Super Bowls out of him. Now we've gotten a 3rd. Let's move on. If someone was a cold-hearted businessman, protect the whole overall brand, they would have done that. Am I crazy for thinking that, Steve? I know you probably
I'll
got the strong. First, had you heard that story?
Yes.
About him stabbing the teammate? Oh,
yes, that's a famous
I'd either
story.
forgotten it or yeah.
That's been in books.
I'd forgotten it.
Trust me.
Yeah.
And when Michael said that, Everett McIver said, hey, you almost took me away from my children. I mean, it was hard not to get choked up because you're like, gee, I mean, look, Michael is one of my favorite athletes of all time, but I know who he is. I know he's not a saint. He was a cowboy. But keep this in mind. When that happened at the Residence Inn, that was the 3rd Super Bowl.
No, that's the drug.
Well,
the Residence Inn is the drug deal and the.
Yeah, but
Go
Jason,
ahead.
when it really
I just don't want the audience
apart,
to get confused.
Well, when he got busted was after the 3rd Super Bowl. The cocaine was flowing with everybody.
Yeah.
I don't want to go out there and endorse it, but I'm not naive about this either, okay? There's drugs in the NFL. Newsflash, okay? Michael was Michael. And it happened with Jimmy Johnson. Let's not be naive. They just did it a little bit less, and they weren't quite as brazen about it, okay? But when Michael got busted, and he admits, I ruined the whole thing, I blew it up, the Cowboys were already declining. Troy Aikman has said this in other documentaries. The most frustrating part of my career is that all my championships happened in the first half. And the team in 92 was better than the team in 93, and the 93 was better than 94, and so on and so on. And free agency had begun to strip away the depth. And then as you got further and further with Barry Switzer, the discipline started to actually really come apart. So yeah, Michael admits he ruined it, but it was already beginning to decline whether we liked it or not. You talk to anyone that was on that 95 team, they will tell you that was by far the lesser of the 3 Super Bowl teams. It was already coming apart.
Anthony?
Yeah, I see it like a little bit like Steve does. I think it was just coincidence in timing. They were already getting bad by the time that happened with Mike. They were starting to kind of unravel. And we hear through the documentary that the dynamics inside of the locker room were already starting to unravel, especially between Troy and Barry and things of that nature. So I think it was a coincidence with Michael Irvin and the timing.
I get it, it's a coincidence, but we got a man in the locker room who is your leader, clearly, who I'm just, having been in locker rooms, you just don't one day in 93 or 94, 95, 96, 97, hey, you know what, I kind of like cocaine and hookers. You've shown all the signs long before.
But it was already happening though.
Yeah.
Like Steve just said, that was already happening league wide, especially with with these big stars. It was already happening.
Jason.
Did you hear Jason, or did you see rather, that Skip Bayless was saying yesterday that ask Michael Irving if Jimmy Johnson was trying to trade him when he got in there. He brought that up.
Anthony.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up. This is one of my favorite books of this era, Hellbent. I actually read this, and at one point, Skip Bayless did great work. Jimmy Johnson has always admitted that he was about to trade him or he was looking to trade him. And it's actually to the Raiders. And Al Davis, for some reason, said, Jimmy, I wouldn't do it. That Irvin kid's got a nose for the end zone. I'd give him a shot. Because at that point, you have to put some context on that, Anthony.
Okay.
Jimmy Johnson loved Michael Irvin. It's still his favorite player. But in 88, Michael Irvin blew out his knee. 89, he blew out his other knee. So he was damaged goods, and Michael's career was hanging by a thread. People do not realize that it wasn't until 91, his fourth or fifth year in the National Football League, he really became an all-pro. So, yeah, and by the way, Jimmy's actually said, Al Davis talked me out of trading Michael Irvin. That's no secret from Skip Bayless.
And so, to me, this is where getting rid of Jimmy Johnson really hurt the team. Because in my view, Jimmy would have been there, would have been in tune, would have been able to sense like, hey, man, we've gotten away with this for as long as we're going to get away with it. And someone has to protect the brand. Someone has to protect the business. I don't know, Anthony, you didn't answer this question.
Uh-oh.
Did you remember the Everett McIver story, the scissor stabbing,
No.
the near murder?
No. I remember the
did-
drug stuff. I don't remember that one.
Yeah, and so I'm sitting there like, this is who everybody thinks Ray Lewis is. And Ray Lewis is another guy that I love. And it's like, Michael Irvin's the actual Ray Lewis, and I'm watching the documentary, and it's like, Michael Irvin goes on to say, what? What are we, hold on, what? What did I say that was crazy? The guy stabbed someone that nearly died over a
Jason.
haircut in the
Jason.
Cowboys facility.
I get it. Michael should have gone to Supercuts that day, or at least Everett should have. But let me just put it to you like this, Michael. I think Jimmy's an unbelievable leader, but these are still men. And I know people that are in that Dallas scene that were in the building that worked with those players as like their assistant. It is Sodom and Gomorrah 365 days out of the year. Here's what I think, and you know this, Jason, the way you were in college, which you have admitted. I believe with Jimmy, the stuff that they were doing, they would at least get home by 2 or 3 o'clock. They'd still do the exact same things that they'd be like, we can't be hungover for practice. Let's get out of here, guys. Whatever you're going to do it. Let's get out of here. Now with Barry Switzer, it's like we could hang out all night. We could be hungover. And this is one of the Troy Aikman things that he hated. One day, everyone came in hungover. 5 minutes in, Barry says, you know what? Y'all ain't into it. Let's just wrap it up. And Troy went nuts. And Troy Aikman goes over to Barry and goes, what the are you doing? And Barry goes, well, hell, Troy, what do you want me to do? Cut Michael Irvin? And Troy said no. And he points over. He goes, cut that guy, and that guy right next to Michael. That's the difference. It would have been disciplined, but to think that all of a sudden these Cowboys would have acted like BYU players in Provo, Jason, you're being naive. Come on. Come on.
I'm not being naive because that's not what I'm arguing. You're taking my argument completely out of context to paint me as naive. I actually played the game. I actually played with drug dealers. They were on my team. I've actually been through this and know what I know some of the players. I friends with Ray Lewis. I get it. I'm not being naive. But what I am saying is you sound like Barry Switzer. And what? Troy Aikman and me are arguing that, no, we want to be a little bit more like Jimmy Johnson. Well, everybody's doing it. And so there's nothing you can do about it. And yes, there are things you can do to prevent, like, man, I got someone on my team that we could get an argument over a haircut and he's going to stab him with scissors and nearly kill him. If that had happened without Everett McIver being paid off, you know what I mean? Hundreds of millions of dollars of damage that does to the Cowboys brand and business. And so there is no oversight. And there's, well, hey, look, man, everybody's just doing cocaine. Everybody's just doing this. No, they filled up their locker room from Charles Haley to Michael Irvin and Deion a little bit in there too on a different way that just like, holy cow, this had no other way to end other than the way that it ended. And Jerry Jones has to be sitting there, thank God I got billions of dollars and was able to pay off people enough so that Everett McIver didn't destroy this franchise.
Well,
that's what transpired.
Okay. I want to ask Mr. Walker, a man of great faith and integrity, probably more than me and Jason. Let's admit it. Let's just come clean on that. Do you believe in the real world, not about living to the biblical standards? I think very few athletes do that, especially in the 90s. And I don't think the Cowboys in the age of social media could have done what they did. But Mr. Walker, I have to ask you, in the real world, does discipline mean perfection?
No.
There you go. Jason, are you listening? Preach, Mr. Walker, preach. Preach.
Jason, no, what I was going to say, Jason, was to Steve's point about Jimmy bringing a discipline to the team and keeping them at a standard. If you're out there and you see a guy get cut because of asthma, like, what in the world, man? We really got to tighten up out here. And you also, Jason, since you saw the whole documentary, you know that the culture really did shift with Barry Switzer. Both Jimmy and Barry could probably say, yeah, show up and do your job. But Barry was more of, if you do your job, hey, we can even slack off on the discipline. Whereas Jimmy was one that was just really trying to hold them tight. Again, I'm not advocating all that Michael Irvin did. And even to say that that was the culture, I'm just saying that I don't see him as, hey, if we got rid of Michael Irvin, everything is getting ready to turn up northward. Nah, it was so much going. And the culture had shifted. If you got a culture where if everybody shows up, it was in the documentary, if everybody shows up to practice hungover and the coach said, guys, let's call it off today. What? How are we going to win a championship with that kind of attitude?
It doesn't, you inch your way to that level of insanity. It's a process. And I just want to be crystal clear here, because I'm telling you, I love Michael Irvin. I think he's great. But they wrapped their arms around a guy that had a hit put out on him by a cop. And the cop, and again, it's pretty clear in this documentary, the cop put a hit out on Michael Irvin because, like, oh, okay, you want to play rough? You want to threaten to kill my wife? Oh, I can put you down as well. This isn't just what Michael Irvin was involved in and needs to repent from and has repented from, but needs to be crystal clear, because that was the other part of the documentary that, troubled me a bit, is there seemed to be kind of this bragging about the White House, and it wasn't a 58-year-old man looking back saying, holy cow, I almost destroyed myself. I almost destroyed Everett McIver. I almost destroyed everything. There seemed to be like, man, we had a good time at the blah, blah, blah. And there was coke in this room, and there was hookers in this room, and there was weed in this room, and blah. Seemed to just be a little bit of bragging and like, hey, this is what goes along with winning football in Dallas. And to some degree, it does. But it's like, hey, man, when a cop is trying to do a murder for hire scheme on you, it's not just because the cop's a bad guy. It's because you threatening to kill his wife. And she done went and testified in court about that. And so you want to go to extreme measures? I can go to extreme measures. And I'm looking at this and saying that Jimmy Johnson, a bad guy in that organization, it's like you had a bunch of mamas in that organization that just wanted to shower empathy everywhere. And there needed to be a man that was like, hey, man, we got to draw a line in the sand somewhere. And Mike, we got 2 Super Bowls out of you here. We'll send you to the Raiders or someplace else. Let them deal with it. And Charles Haley, how many ever Super Bowls we got out of you, we're going to have to let you go as well. Again, as long as you had Nate Newton, and not that he was any kind of angel, but Eric Williams, and that offensive line, and some of them other, you were going to win games. That was a super talented team. And what Jerry Jones was saying in that documentary that I do think he somewhat proved is like, hey, man, I can bring Barry Switzer. He ain't even coached in 5 years, and he can win a Super Bowl with this team. And he was right. That roster was loaded, and they could have unloaded some of the cargo that was taking them, this Titanic direction.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've rambled here.
The man that put the roster together was Jimmy Johnson. That's the truth. If you really think that it was Jerry Jones. This is what happened. And again, I think Mr. Walker can attest to this. Look at the 4 drafts after Jimmy Johnson left. They drafted one really good player, Larry Allen. Maybe Dexter Coakley. He was a solid linebacker. Post Jimmy Johnson, those drafts, Shante Carver, Kavika Pittman, David LaFleur, duds. Duds. I've actually charted now. To Jerry Jones's credit and Stephen Jones, the last 15 years, they've actually drafted well. Zach Martin, Des Bryant, Tyron Smith, CeeDee Lamb, no problems. Immediately after Jerry took the reins, it was a disaster from a player personnel standpoint. Also, every player from that era, as flawed as Michael Irvin was, they will tell you he was probably the most important guy in that locker room emotionally. Everyone has said it. I've actually talked to these guys privately and said, we had to deal with a lot with Michael. But the one quote from the Skip Bayless book, and I think it might have been this one, Hellbent, they said Michael Irvin could be an issue all throughout the week. But on Sunday afternoon or Monday night, and you're nervous and you're scared and you're throwing up, you're like, oh my God, I can't do this. You look over at Michael Irvin and everyone said, oh, we got that guy. We're okay. Jason, this is professional sports. That's the way it is. It's uncomfortable, but that is the truth.
It's a lot of people, including myself and every other human being that I've met. Sometimes they're real capable of identifying the things that made them successful. And sometimes they misidentify the things that made them successful, and they credit things that really had nothing to do with their success to their success. Hey, this was part of the culture. You know, Derek Thomas and I were very good friends. He used to think getting drunk 3 or 4, 5 times a week was a part of his success story, that was part of his process of being successful, and just partying and making. I just watched Carmelo Anthony and some of these NBA players talk about, I can't remember what team they were on, but they were talking about the team building they did at strip clubs and how important that was and how that created and so I've seen people buy into things and think that that's part of their success cycle and success process, but they may have misidentified, and that's not to discount what everybody says about Michael Irvin. It's just to say there is a possibility they may have misidentified, and it may have been other things. It may have been Emmitt Smith's vision, which is exceptional as a running back, and that's why he could run a 4.6. But go ahead.
Well, Michael Irvin has admitted in other documentaries that, hey, there was a period of time for about 6 weeks a year, I would do a lot of stuff. And then come March 5th, it'd be football again. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but also, Jason, I get what you're saying about the glorification of the White House. Everyone else was like, oh, I don't know anything about, you're not getting. Don't you appreciate a guy actually saying, hey, this is what happened, especially like now after this whole thing, Mr. Walker, I don't know if he's the playmaker or I'm going to know him as the president. I mean, wow. I mean, and then he gave one of the greatest quotes ever in relationship to that house of ill repute. We tried to do the wrong thing the right way. Oh, come on. Come on, Whitlock. That's gold. Give it to him. Come on. Come on.
Jason, the whole documentary.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I was going to say the whole documentary was a lot of those kinds of stories of this is how it ended up happening. Jerry Jones saying, I bought that oil rig and with my last $800,000 turned it into $100 million and bought the Dallas Cowboys. I brought my family on. We did it a different way. I negotiated the deal with Nike and Fox, and both of those were breaking the rules, renegade. Like they're all, if you want to use that, they, misassessed how it was successful. They're all going to look back and say, man, we won. We ended up doing it. We got a couple of Super Bowls out of it. And that's why Jerry is still chasing. I'm not saying that those things were what made Michael Irvin. Obviously, what he did on the field and the discipline that he had to do what he did, that was what made him successful. That's what we wouldn't be talking about them, as Steve said early on, had they not won Super Bowls. We'd be dealing with the Bills documentary. But I think at the end of the day, though, I enjoyed the stories, the complicated stories of the Dallas Cowboys. It was a complicated, messy situation, and it almost leaves you. I'm not a Cowboys fan, but it almost leaves you like you said, rooting for them in the end. Like, man, maybe they'll get one more for old the Gambler.
For old Jerry.
I'm certainly rooting for Jerry Jones, but I guess the documentary is amazing. I just couldn't. Me and Michael Irvin are, I think, basically the same age, 58, 50. He may be 59. I can't. Wisdom is about the only thing we have left to pass on, and the wisdom from our mistakes is what we really have left to pass on. And I wouldn't, young people watching, current Cowboys watching, and you could easily come away from that documentary and be like, yeah, the way you go about winning championships is, throw your mink coat on. When you get squared up with a prosecutor that isn't telling you what you want to hear, throw your mink coat on, put your sunglasses on, and go to war with the prosecutor. And that's how you ended up with this Rachel whatever testifying and making a fool out of you. And if you're lucky, there will be a Jerry Jones, or maybe you got enough money, maybe your agent got enough money to pay someone off so they cut you a plea agreement that lets you skate on all of this. But there's a 98% chance you're not going to be that lucky. And so when I unpack the story about me throwing the mink coat on and going to war with the prosecutor, I'm going to put in there, and maybe they left it out in editing, I don't know, but I'm going to put out like, hey man, I nearly cost myself my freedom. I nearly ruined my family. Thank God my wife stuck with me despite my stupidity and arrogance, because I'm playing Russian roulette with my life. And at 58 now I realize just how lucky I am. Rather than, I think a lot of people will watch that and say, man, the Cowboys, they had a great time. It was fun, and they did all kinds of wild things, and that's what makes a great championship team. It's not just the hard work. You got to play just as hard, and you got to have guys in your locker room that are nuts and crazy, and I'm just not so sure if that's the impression I want to leave behind. But I'm a square now. So, but Anthony, I see you wanted to say something.
Let me get this in, and then Steve can take over. Michael Irvin does make a statement that points to what you're saying when he was in the situation that he went through. He said that his wife told him, she said, hey, God has already told me that I'm going to be your wife and I'm not going anywhere. But then she tells him, but you've got to make peace with God. And he said that was the most harrowing place that he was in that whole dynamic. So I see him saying that. Now, Jason, I look at it, they are telling the story. And whenever we look back in the past, there will be some highs and lows and peaks and valleys. They're telling the story. But Michael does give those moments of, that was the toughest part of my life. That was I did these kind of things. He was asked a question. He's going to tell them about the White House. He'll tell them. And you're right. The foolish people of today's generation and the foolish young men of today's generation are going to look at that, and they may gather, man, I'm going to do just like that. Those who are leaning towards wisdom are going to say, man, I can dodge all of that. I need to grab a hold to the kind of discipline he had on the field, come into the season every year in tip-top shape, ready to go. I need to gather the discipline of a Jimmy Johnson to say, hey, man, it doesn't matter how good, you got to be even better than the next guys. I can see that on both ways. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, Mr. Walker, to your point, there's no doubt Michael Irvin does have contrition. Now, does he revel in some of the sins? Maybe, but again, he's a natural storyteller. He's a very gregarious guy. I know people have known Michael for years, and I'll tell you, even at his worst moments, he's a likable guy. And as for his wife, Sandy, she deserved better. She is the saint in that relationship. I've been told she's going through some health issues. I certainly feel bad for her, but she has been the bedrock of that family. And I think Michael himself would absolutely admit that he got lucky because he put her through heck. I don't think there's any doubt about it. And Jason, in terms of the whole thing about the background stories and some of the stuff that's salacious, you don't think the 80s Lakers, led by your favorite athlete, Magic Johnson, had their escapades? We got to be naive about. We can't be naive about this, Jason. There is an underbelly to all of this.
Steve.
Yes.
I'm many things. Naive is not one of them.
Okay,
and, you know,
but we
there's
have
been
to
three,
face
four
this
times
thing.
I've been called. Let me finish. I'm many things. I'm not naive, and so. Am I aware that the Lakers and Magic Johnson used to date my sister? Magic Johnson has
Really?
AIDS or HIV. I'm aware of the consequences of Magic Johnson's foolishness. Magic Johnson never stabbed anybody and nearly killed them. Magic Johnson wasn't caught up in hotel rooms with hookers and cocaine. And so, yes, I'm aware of everything that goes along in professional sports. Covered it for years. Most of my friends were either collegiate or professional athletes. I'm not naive about any of this. And so,
Well,
but
Jason,
what the
Magic was
Cowboys were
not what-
into, let me finish, Steve. What the Cowboys were into is on a whole different level. They
Was it?
nearly killed a man in the facility. Show me where, other than Gilbert Arenas and the other guy drawing guns on each other, I'm unaware of other examples of someone nearly getting killed in the facility. This is different. And it was fascinating to watch, and there are lessons to be learned from it. And yes, does Aaron Hernandez, was he a killer and a murderer and other things? Yes, this goes along with it. But just like in Florida, it can go too far. And with the Cowboys, in my view, it went too far. Continue.
Well, okay, you're right. Point taken. But Magic was caught with at least half those things. The other half, I will agree, he probably didn't partake. But with that said, Confucius, the great philosopher, says, what is rewarding is often not fun. What is fun is not often rewarding. But you know what? Maybe the Dallas Cowboys of the 90s proved that to be incorrect.
Yeah, I think it all depends on your point of view of what fun is. And there are some people that don't equate fun with cocaine and hookers. Now, cocaine, I can say no experience with it. But there are people that, have fun in other ways and don't define that. And, kind of on this show, we don't, particularly, I've lived long enough, I've done long enough, I'm trying to explain to people like this stuff that they're calling fun, it really isn't fun. It ends up leading to destruction. It generally leads to the destruction of your family, generally leads to the destruction of your own life. It generally leaves you embarrassed in your reputation. But again, we've built a very corrupt world where now it actually, if you're a member of the Bloods gang and you smoke weed on air and you check in with gang members, it actually leads you to opportunities in this world we've built for today. I get it. I tend to complain about this world that we built for today and think that it's unhealthy, but others don't.
Jason, I don't disagree with anything you just said. Mr. Walker, I think you'll enjoy this story. I don't know if you ever heard it, but Michael Irvin used to torture this linebacker by the name of Robert Jones. He was a first-round draft choice out of East Carolina in '92. Very good, solid player. I mean, he was very much a God-fearing family man. I mean, he was the model, right? He was one of the few Cowboys that stayed away from all of that stuff. He lived a godly life. And Michael used to just slay him and torture him and get in his face and make him feel bad. And so Robert Jones had very harsh feelings about Michael Irvin for years. So as Michael Irvin's career ends, and I believe Robert Jones is on another team, he had left the Cowboys, he's in the locker room, and I don't know what point of the game or after the game it was, someone taps him on the shoulder and said, Robert, Michael Irvin wants to talk to you outside. He's right there. And Robert goes, Michael Irvin? Really? Why? He doesn't know why, but he's adamant He wants to speak to you. And Robert just goes, oh, geez. So he walks over there. He trudges over going, I don't want to do this. He faces Michael Irvin, and Michael Irvin looks at him right in the eye and goes, Robert, I just want to let you know you were right and I was wrong. You lived a life that should be praised. I just want to apologize. It's an amazing story. Michael himself knows he did not live this righteous life.
Wow. Wow.
I believe that's the Michael Irvin I know and have heard from. And, you know, it's why you hear me champion Michael Irvin. I get Michael Irvin. He's not in control of editing the Netflix documentary. I'm aware of that. And so there may have been some contrition and wisdom that they left out. I'm open to that. But what I saw left me with the impression like, holy cow, they need a bad guy in that organization. And that's been part of the problem. We'll end on this note, and I can't believe I'm not going to get to Shedeur and this other stuff, but we'll end on this note. Micah Parsons, if he watches that documentary, should he, in my opinion, be more like, man, I want to sign with the Cowboys. I want this connection with Jerry Jones and the Cowboys organization. That's my takeaway. That's what, if you know, they did the documentary with no thought, I'm sure, of Micah Parsons, but there is a way that Jerry Jones wants to be viewed by players and athletes. And I think this documentary, through editing, through Jerry's manipulation, or just organically, if I'm an NFL player, I want to play for Jerry Jones. And if I'm a broadcaster, having watched that, and I'm adding an extra layer to this, is these insinuations somehow that Jerry Jones is out here some sort of racist that, you know, is, oh, he wouldn't kneel during the national anthem, or he didn't like Colin Kaepernick. It's because he's racist. I felt like the documentary intentionally, unintentionally, organically, and so it blows up that narrative pretty massively.
Let me jump in before and let Steve finish it. I would say, given Jerry Jones being able to handle the nuance of family and business, we've seen him through the years be in these public contract discussions and dirt getting slung around and all of this kind of stuff. And then he signs the guy and pays him, you know, the top, you know, paid in his position, and they just get along after that. Like, he doesn't really take it that personally. And so I think if there's any way that they could get a deal done, they could get a deal done and play. And it would be to the benefit of Micah Parsons. If that's his goal, to stay with the Cowboys, he'll get paid and he'll have, you know, an opportunity. They've got a pretty good squad. He'll have an opportunity. But this is, you remember in the documentary, Jerry is all about, what did his dad say? You know, even if it's not working good, you got to make it look like it's working. So he's going to do all of this. This keeps everybody talking about the Cowboys, you know, some kind of contract negotiation, some kind of salacious signing, like it's just a part of it. But end of the day, if Micah wants, you know, that star and what comes with it, I think he and Jerry need to go in the room and get it done.
To add
Steve,
to
I'll
that,
give you a final thought.
Mr. Walker and Jason, I believe here's what needs to happen. One of two things. Micah needs to either hire Charles Haley to come into the room with the helmet in his hand. That'll scare Jerry straight. There's a track record there. Okay, work with Emmett. Or he needs to tell Mulugheta, David, you work for me. If this has gotten personal between you two, that's okay, but I want to be a Cowboy. Make a deal happen. I equate this to boxing. If a fighter really wants a fight, and there's issues like, well, that guy's with a different promoter, or there's issues there, that fighter will tell the promoter and the manager, guys, you work for me. I want that fight. You find a way. You're not holding up my career, but I want that fight. I believe that Micah Parsons at this point, he can't ditch Mulugheta. That's his guy. I get it. I believe that he needs to tell his representation, make the best deal absolutely possible within reason with the Cowboys, then I will decide if it's a good deal or not.
Gentlemen, I'm sorry. I really apologize to the audience. I didn't know we'd go this long on the documentary and the whole Cowboys deal, but I thought it was a pretty good conversation. Not going to get to Shedeur. I do want to remind you all this Sunday about a new initiative that the Blaze is launching, Sunday Revival, a new series starting this Sunday featuring inspiring messages from pastors like Jack Graham and Alan Jackson, available every Sunday morning for Blaze TV subscribers. Join us each week to deepen your faith, stay grounded in God's word, and start your week with purpose and inspiration, no matter the chaos in the world. Check out Sunday Revival this Sunday only on Blaze TV. Gentlemen, audience, that's it, and that's all for us on this Friday. Don't miss me in 10 minutes. That'll be 11:35 Central Time. In 10 minutes on the Harmony Channel, Chad Jackson will be in studio with me. We'll continue a conversation Chad and I had about MLK, but we'll connect it to Nick Fuentes. Is he just another version of Martin Luther King? We'll play tomorrow, and we'll see you next week.
Freedom. Came like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all this moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on a corner, never been alone. I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, no deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want freedom.